New Caledonia's hidden secrets is the shockingly extreme French colonial racism and segregation based on a white supremacist ideology that is still prevalent amongst the old French colonizers known as the Caldoches and the new arrivals from France known as the Metro. Not surprisingly, it is these two groups who are the most fiercely opposed to Kanaki independence. Join us today as we uncover how the white supremacist ideology of the early French settlers led to a deliberate strategy by France of wiping the Kanak people off the face of the earth by committing a secret genocide that few people know about today. Viewers, do you think perhaps I'm exaggerating? Here is the shocking evidence. In a 23rd October 1856 letter to Admiral Fourrichon, the French military commandant of New Caledonia, Testard, offered his advice on how to carry out this genocide by stating that, and I quote, "We must start by destroying this population if we want to live in safety in this country. The only medium would be to batter them like the wolves in France, with several detachments of 30 men, destroying the plantations, the villages, and to renew these raids several times a day during the approach of the rainy season." Decades later, this white supremacist mindset and genocidal intent based on white supremacy was still prevalent amongst the French colonizers. The commander of the French forces in New Caledonia during the Kanak uprising of 1878, Henri Rivière, said in his memoir that the Kanaks must be absorbed by the French or made to disappear because, and I quote, "these black or bronze races, whether they are from the Americas or Oceania, are not absorbed. They are too different from the white races by their customs which never progressed, by an invincible repugnance to work, by their complete indifference for a civilization of which they cannot appreciate." Rivière's colonial sentiments echoed the extremes of social Darwinism theory that was prevalent in Europe at the time, which argued that, just like in nature, only the strongest and fittest human races can and should survive. And of course, this is the white race. In the French society of the 1870s, socio-Darwinist thought produced the idea that French colonialism and the exercise of cultural superiority over the so-called inferior races of the world was part of the inescapable struggle for life. Administrators and military commanders repeatedly used the quote-unquote survival of the fittest theory to justify their imperialist conquest and dominance over the quote-unquote savage populations. Far more alarming was the fact that French military commanders in New Caledonia genuinely believed the Kanaks could not become civilized and therefore should be wiped out. Furthermore, this genocidal white supremacist attitude was equally held by the ordinary French colonists in New Caledonia. In fact, shortly after the 1878 Kanak Rebellion, an anonymous letter written by a French settler was sent to the colonial authorities of New Caledonia justifying the French massacre of Kanaks. It stated, and I quote, "Finally, consider that the race which this colony is killing is at the very bottom of the ladder of humanity. They are savages who have not even raised themselves to the lowest level of civilization. No art has arrived to soften their ways. This statement epitomized the settlers' racial attitudes towards the indigenous Kanak population and still does to date. Furthermore, the settlers chose to ignore the fact that due to the forced relocation of the Kanak people into the barren interior of the country, where the land was infertile and incapable of growing crops, they were starving to death. By 1900, there was a casual acceptance amongst the French settlers of New Caledonia that the extermination of the Kanaks was almost complete. A Christian missionary, Maurice Lenhard, who arrived in Nouméa in 1903, was asked by the city's mayor, "What have you come here for? In 10 years, there won't be any Kanaks left." The good news today, viewers, is that the Kanak people are still here. But the legacy of colonial racism and segregation based on this white supremacist ideology has continued to shatter their lives. This systemic discrimination is often referred to as a form of hidden apartheid, where the policies and practices of the past continue to affect the present. The Kanaks have faced generations of marginalization and discrimination, and the trauma from this racial oppression has been for the Kanaks not just physical, but also psychological. They have been made to feel inferior. Their culture has been suppressed, and their traditional governance systems have been dismantled. The systemic racism they face is deeply embedded in the institutions in New Caledonia. From schools to workplaces, Kanaks are often treated as second-class citizens. Despite these oppressive conditions, the Kanak people have continuously resisted and fought for their rights. The struggle for independence and equality has been a long and arduous journey. Their fight is not just for political independence, but for the recognition of their identity, their rights, and their rightful place in their own ancestral land. They demand justice for the past and equality for the future. The New Caledonia of today stands at a critical juncture. The path to true equality and reconciliation will require, first and foremost, acknowledging the past and addressing present injustices. And how is France handling the Kanak issue today? Instead of acknowledging the historical injustices perpetrated against the Kanaks and granting the full independence they are demanding, the French government has been strategically undermining the Kanaki independence movement from the outset by pursuing a new form of settler colonialism. This official sabotage policy can be clearly seen in the letter that Prime Minister Pierre Messner wrote in 1972, stating that, and I quote, "In the short and medium term, the massive emigration of French citizens must allow the avoidance of the danger of the pro-independence cause through the maintaining and improving of the numerical balance of the communities. In the long term, the indigenous nationalist cause will only be avoided if the non-indigenous communities represent a democratic majority mass." As a result of this ongoing immigration, the indigenous Kanak population has been reduced from 100% to 40%. The Kanaks have become a marginalized minority on their own indigenous land. Given this scenario, what is the way forward for them? Let us bear in mind that under international law, allowing the white settlers to opt for a continued association with France by outvoting the indigenous Kanak community would be a travesty of the right to self-determination and would defeat the very essence of decolonization. The new Electoral Reform Bill is a prime example of a former colonial power deliberately changing the demographic composition of a former colony in order to sabotage the right to self-determination of the indigenous population. The way forward, therefore, given that the Nouméa Accords have been terminated, is that the Kanak people should once again invoke their right to self-determination under international law. They must also choose to no longer accept any further betrayals by France in the form of agreements whose only aim is to further delay their independence. And that's it, viewers. Thank you for joining us on this journey through New Caledonia's dark history. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of the remarkable resilience and resistance of the Kanak people. And please leave your comments below. Until next time, bye-bye.